what I imagine that we are going to do here is there is a final exam, and the final exam is like a mini qualifier exam. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 questions that could be questions or were questions that I asked in different exams. In the qualifier exam, both in accounting and AS, there will be an audit question. And I usually write that question, but maybe Alan will write it. So for the PhD students, that exam is relevant as a practice for the qualifier. Okay, I don't put a lot of the grade of the class on that, but that's for practice. Okay, but the main thing in the class is the little project and your presentations. And I'm going to give you some ideas for projects. I made a list here, but you can do anything you really want. And if you are an MIT student, I tell the MIT student, think serious if they really want to put as much work as this class will require. Because we'll be reading 4 articles per class, or 3 or 5, and then project and etc. But if you're an MIT student, you'll be waived from the final exam, and maybe even from reading some articles. Okay, PhD student, you do this, and you have read 1/5, 5% of the audit literature. Audit literature is huge, and it's very behavioral, okay, these days. But you will be kind of ready to read anything, if you can. Okay, so this will be the requirements of the class. And for the project, I'm going to do something I never did before. I have been thinking about doing this, is I am going to, every 2 classes, ask you to have a piece of your paper. So when it comes to the end of the class, you have the paper done without having to work all night for 3 days. Okay? And it's just kind of a good habit to learn how to organize these things. So I'm probably going to suggest that. If one of the groups, I will suggest you to work in group, and if one of the groups doesn't want to do that, want to do it other way, I'm okay with that. I had 2 of the groups of the seminar last year actually ready to submit a paper based on that class. Okay, one already came back with a couple of revisions from different people reading it, so it's a good exercise. And if you are going to do a systemy, you would submit it to a more systems journal. If you're going to do Auditing, same kind of thing, you go to an audit journal. Okay, so we have 4 articles for next week, and I might add 1 more. And this time I'm not going to ask presentation, but I will ask you to be ready. From next class on, and you should thank Chow for not being here, because she's the one we're going to be assigned the papers. And because she wasn't here, I didn't want to impose on June, who is doing a favor for helping us today. But Chow is going to be assigning everyone. And most of you know Chow, not the MIT student, but the PhD student. So she'll be doing this. Okay, and she'll give you a chance to choose the papers you want to discuss. Will be maybe 3 papers in the semester. Okay, but just because Kristen is discussing a paper doesn't mean you don't need to read it. Okay, you certainly need to read it because I want you to have the background. I also don't want you to be cramming the day before your major field exam trying to read 50 papers. Okay.
How do you want us to discuss the papers?
It's going to be a little presentation of 10 minutes with PowerPoints.
Slides? Okay.
Yeah, but you know, we had some people that don't like PowerPoints, like to talk. Paul doesn't like PowerPoint. So Paul comes, and I don't know how he has memory for this. You've seen him do it. He is amazing. He's also good. I think he's going to be a very good teacher, isn't he? Oh, yeah. Paul has a job. He wanted to go back where he grew up in Michigan, so he has a job in Eastern Michigan University. Yeah. And so, and you meet him because he did a super app. He's doing a super app for his dissertation, and we're doing a very nice, intricate clustering study with clustering and factor analysis mixed up, and etc. And I'll explain to you for a second what a super app is. Our idea is that accountants, auditors, will not have the competence to do all sophisticated statistical analysis. And so the idea, and this comes from a guy called Bill Gale, he used to be at Bell Labs with me. and he wrote a thing called REX, Regression Expert, and basically created a little knowledge system that got data from an analysis and did what a regression expert would do, interpreted the data. So Paul has these 4 steps of interpretation out of clustering methodology. So he would, June would be saying, this is clustering for, let's say, finding outliers on the accounts receivable population. And so he would apply that in the standardized accounts receivable, get the clustering, but instead of having to hire a statistician or study statistics for 2 years, the software does the steps for him. And here we see this. Paul has one working. Paul and Junsen, isn't it Junsen who's working with him?
Yeah, Junsen's working with him, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see it. Maybe I'll get Junsen to come and present.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. Have the 2 of them do a show. Okay. But you'll see, this is a thing we are going to do. We're going to have 3 or 4 ex-dissertations or current dissertations. I really would like if I can get Chi to present her. She did a dissertation, exploratory data analysis and confirmatory data analysis. So it's basically, actually one of the slides she showed comes from Chi's dissertation, kind of. And now she and Trevor, who is a retired partner of Deloitte, are writing a paper on we should change the auditing standards from confirmatory data analysis to initially exploratory data analysis like modern research. And when you are going to go and take a methodology course here, your PhD students, you are going to say, well, you think the theory very carefully, then you formulate your hypothesis, and then you go and collect the data and etc. That's the old-fashioned way of doing things because it was extremely painful to collect data in the old days. Janine Cloud did the convertible debentures dissertation under me at Columbia, and she spent a year going every day to the library collecting data. Okay, today you have all these databases, so you don't spend so much data collecting data, so much time, so you don't need to do this very tight hypothesis formulation, although some purists say you should. What you do is you do a lot of exploration of your data, and what you're very careful not to overfit, meaning not to create a model based on data and then testing it on the same data. And there are many ways to extend the scope of the data, meaning not to overfit. But we think, Trevor and me think that this idea of changing the auditing standards to formulate a whole series of alternative assertions is a very interesting idea for changing the standard. So I convinced them to write a paper on this, and so they are going to do. Let's see how mature they are going to be on that paper. If they are mature, we will present it here. If they are not mature, what we'll do is just have Chi talk a little bit about her dissertation. She's going to call in and Skype because she is in Albany. I didn't ask her, but I'm sure she will. Okay? And can I stay with MIT students for a second? Thank you very much, and I'll see you next Tuesday.